Hi
everyone.
there.
This is Stanley and Otito from the Grey
Grey
Couch, and we have people here live on the couch. We have Rich and Sharon. I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. So, Rich and Sharon, we've known from church. We attend the same church somewhere in Morris County, New Jersey. So, let's start with Sharon.
Yeah, so my name is Sharon, and I'm born and raised in New Jersey. And Rich and I have been married for, I think, 4 years. I'm really bad at keeping track.
That's normally the guy's thing.
I think 4 years, but I'm pretty sure it's going on 4 years because next year, on our 5th year, we were talking about taking a trip with our bridal party to the south of France. So that's how I know. Whenever that trip happens, then that's 5 years.
Okay.
So we have a little fur baby named Archie, who is like the cutest little cavapoo, and he's been bringing us a ton of joy in our life recently.
Okay.
That's a little bit about me.
And I'm Rich. Like Sharon said, we're married. She is correct. We will be married for 4 years in August, and we'll be going to our 5th year anniversary next year. Lived for the predominantly of my life in New Jersey. Spent a little bit of time in Boston, but we're here now, and we do have a fur baby that hopefully isn't causing any trouble.
Okay, you get to see that fur baby because I took a video of him
Oh,
running around with the kids.
Yes.
And you guys have been married for 4 years, but how long have you known each other, dated?
Where did you meet?
Yeah, Rich will be better at that timeline. It's been a while.
Why don't you give a story?
I'm not great.
Why don't you tell a story while I cue up the
Story of
timeline?
how we met?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, when we first met, I really disliked him. And that is putting it lightly. Mind you, I was like 18, 19 at the time, and a lot more fiery. And we were sitting around at church in like a youth group setting, and he was sitting behind me with his friends, and this is his home church, so everybody there is just, everyone knows each other. Everyone's family, they grew up together. I'm the newbie coming in, so I don't really know what the relationship dynamics are. But I had this friend at the time, she said something in the group, and Rich was sitting behind us, and he just scoffs, and he goes, ugh, freshman. And I was like, what? And I turn around, I give him the dirtiest look, and I was like, how dare you say something about my friend that way? I didn't say that in my words, but it was all in the eyes, you know? And then in my mind, I was like, I am never talking to this guy. This is why I don't come to church. I wasn't a churchgoer at that time, and so kind of had written him off in my life. Then fast forward maybe like a year, I become a Christ follower. I go back to that church to try to like grow my faith. And my mom was chatting with other people, and I was like, she's taking forever. What am I going to do with my time? So then Rich is like seeing me walk by myself. He was like, oh, do you want to sit and talk? And I was like, oh, not this guy again. I was like, I have no one else to talk to, so I guess I'll talk to him. And we sit down, started talking. I was like, oh, he's not that bad. All right, like, okay, maybe we can, maybe I don't have to hate you.
So this is the point in time where I get to fill in some of the details that Sharon may have just omitted for the sake of the story. As Sharon said, I grew up in a small church where everyone knew each other, and so when she was talking about her friend, it's actually my friend's younger cousin, and so for us, because we've grown up with each other, there's a lot of sibling jabs and things like that. So. For me, I didn't think too much of it, but when I saw you looking at me, my first thought actually was, who are you? Why are you reacting this way to me? But while Sharon was telling the story, which for the most part is true, I was doing the math in my head. So we met originally in 2010, and we started dating in 2011.
Okay.
And so if you do the math, that's actually a considerable time dating.
Yeah.
But what I like to use as an excuse, and Sharon may agree or disagree with the excuse, is that we started dating in October of 2011, and then by December of 2011, I had decided to move to Boston after I graduated college.
Yeah, for his postdoc.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so while we started dating a long time ago, for the 3.5 years that I was in Boston, we were actually doing long distance dating. And when I do the math on how many days we were actually together in person dating throughout these 3.5 years, it probably amounted to 60 days, 90 days.
Right. Yes. So
Yeah.
even when he moved back to Jersey, I told him, I was like, I don't think I can get engaged with you yet because I don't know if I'm gonna like you if you're here like every
Yeah.
day
Yeah.
all year. So I was like, I need a year of just in person, and if that still works out, then we can talk about engagement.
That's important though, because I feel like sometimes the long distance thing, right? Sometimes people kind of have a hard time with the adjustments. So, okay, good. How you met? So now tell us. On the couch we're talking, like we want to bring people from different cultures, different tribes. So what are your cultural backgrounds?
So my mom is from Taiwan,
Okay.
and then my father was actually born in China but moved to Taiwan as like a kid. So I
Okay.
think they would probably identify with like being more of a Taiwanese
Okay.
cultural background.
Okay.
They moved here when they were like in their 30s.
Okay.
And I was born and raised in New Jersey. So I think I identify most with being just like Chinese American. And have always tried to straddle like both cultures. And when I was younger, it was like, which one's right, which one's wrong. But as I get older, I'm like, oh, it's not so much what's right and wrong. It's actually just a marrying of both.
Okay.
And for my background, it's a similar but slightly different story. My mom was born in Taiwan, but culturally we are from mainland. Her side of the family is from mainland China,
Okay.
and she emigrated to the U.S. for graduate school.
Okay.
My dad is from mainland China. He fled China during the Communist Revolution and ended up in Canada, specifically Toronto. And so he actually spent high school in
wow.
Toronto, went to college and uni in Toronto, and came to the U.S. for work and grad school as well. So as Sharon was saying, she considers herself Chinese American. I consider myself more American Chinese because I think my family assimilate themselves into the American culture a little bit earlier than some of the other people that I know in my generation.
Yeah.
Okay.
An interesting thing too is where I went to school, like for high school and like the area I grew up in, it was a lot of Asian people, mostly Chinese, and a lot of Jewish people. So like I feel like growing up there was still that like navigating your Chinese identity, and there was more of it because there was more of us. Whereas you grew up in a town that had predominantly more white Americans, right?
We did.
So for you, it was like you were the one or two or handful of Chinese people that had to kind of like navigate being in a primarily white space.
I would say in a class of 400, we probably had about 10 to 15 people who were Asian. I would say Asian as a whole.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 that were African American,
Whoa.
and then the rest were either white of all spectrums.
Yeah. Wow. So that is, like Sharon said, quite a predominantly white environment, as it were. Okay. So now, when we asked you to pick topics from the Grey Couch, you picked 3 broad topics. You picked values, love languages, community. So we have a few questions, on this, but we're going to dwell on community because I feel like that's what we're already doing here, right? So the first will be on values, right? So.
Okay, no pressure. Okay, so values. What do values mean to both of you from an individual and cultural point of view? Do you have any values not in alignment with each other? Do you have any values not in alignment with each other before you got married? And how did you deal, and how do you deal with that right now? Who's going to go first?
I don't know. Do you want me to go first?
Okay.
Okay. So I think for me, when it comes to values, they're the anchor of your life. They are what dictates where your compass leads and how you form your goals and how you form your vision for your life. And so without those values, it's not that you're aimless, but you might not be going in a direction that you actually should be going in or that you feel like your life should be going in. I feel like Sharon and I do share similar values. I don't necessarily know if they were the same values when we first started dating or as relating towards marriage. One example I can give is that I know that one of my values is family, but family for me looks very different than family for Sharon, because for me, growing up, we had a very insular family. It was my mom, my dad, my brother, and myself, and we were told to always rely on each other. And I think because of that, it was hard to integrate another person, another entity into that nuclear family. And so through dating Sharon, especially as we were going through marriage courses and we were talking about marriage, disassociating myself from the family of origin and moving into a new family changed. I would say changed my values in terms of what I thought family was and what it could be as I was forming my new family.
Yeah, and I think for me, my family of origin, like, it was just me and my parents, and also my parents were divorced, so we didn't really have, like, maybe the same values instilled that, like, you had to be with your blood family. So for myself, it's more about, and once I became a Christ follower, it's more about finding, like, this broader family that you may not be related by blood, but there's something else, whether it be value systems or interests or just humor or whatever that ties you together. And then because it is family, you have to commit to that. And so that's something that I've found has shaped me, molded me, encouraged me to grow, and also brought a lot of joy. Because you can't pick your blood family, but you can pick, like, that core community or family that travels with you throughout different seasons of life. And from what I've found so far is that community that knows you when you're 20 versus when you're 30 or 40 and 50, like, they're able to speak into your life so differently because they've seen your patterns and your growth and your changes.
Wow. Thank you. Okay, so now the question I have is, what aspect of, I think you kind of touched on it, but I'll still ask the question. What aspect of life growing up had the most influence on your values? Did it impact the way you came into the marriage? What did you have to learn and unlearn? So did you have to go through a deep adjustment phase?
Yeah. I think something that I was taught growing up, and this is probably primarily because my parents are divorced, is the fact that my mom had a lot of fear, and this is not a knock on her, it's just like reality. She had a lot of fear of what it means to be an immigrant woman growing up in society by yourself. And so she would always tell me, don't rely on a man, you have to earn your own way and be very independent. And those are good values, like to have your own interests and not be codependent on somebody else. But I think I took that to the extreme. That was like, it's just me, myself, and I, and this is what I think I carried into marriage. And I think over time I'm trying to relinquish that as well, that it's no longer me, myself, and I, it's actually a we, and we're a team, and it's not just about my career aspirations, my goals, my dreams, but those also impact Rich, and there can be a beauty in marrying them together. It doesn't have to be black and white. It doesn't have to be like, oh, I want this, so he can't have that, or he wants it, so I can't have that. It's about finding that mutual ground, that compromise, and you might actually be surprised on where you land up, where you end up through that.
Similarly, growing up, as I was referring to, we had a very, very close in our eyes, nuclear family, and so there was a lot of trust in that everything was shared. So one good example is that we each have keys for each other's houses. We have the same garage codes, so one code opens everyone's garage. But part of that is because we don't feel like there's like this person's like money or house, or this person's money or house. It's just the family. But once Sharon and I got married, and I got married before my brother did, we had to form what is our household, what is our family, and separate that a little bit from my parents and my brother and her parents as well.
I think it's interesting because we've kind of taken a little bit of both into our family. So like his family is very generous within the family. But I feel like we've decided we want to be generous outside of our family too. So like there are friends that know our garage code, and so Rich makes this joke of like, all right, just like announce when you're here because I might be naked in the house. And so our friends know, like when they come in the house through the garage, they'll be like, hello, like really loud, just in case. Most likely Rich would be like in no pants or whatever. I'm always dressed. I don't know. So I'm ready.
King of the castle. Of the castle. I can tell you because I have deep experience.
I'm pleading the fifth.
Again, when you grow up with a predominantly boy household, like,
Yep.
Yeah.
but also
That's so funny.
also touching upon love languages a little bit. For my family, one of the ways that one of the values that was expressed is that we should always have family time. But family time for us was being in the house together. You don't necessarily have to interact with each other. So
Or be in the same room. Mom could be in the bedroom. Kids could be downstairs. That's quality time.
I think even the idea of having dinner together, we were always in different rooms doing different things, but because we're in the same house, that's quality time. Whereas for Sharon, quality time is something that's vastly different. It's communicating, it's discussing things, it's getting to know each other, digging deep. So that's something that I've had to work on, continually work on, because it's easy for me to just default on what I remember and what I grew up to be family time.
Yeah, and I think that's actually been a struggle. That's like caused conflict in the marriage, because for Rich, he's especially now working at home, and if I'm at home too, he's like, we're spending time together, we're at home. And I'm like, no, we are not. And Rich is also more introverted as well, so for him, he's like, I chose to be around you all the time, so naturally I like you and we're together. But for me, it's not even just communication, it's meaningful communication, but also even like going out and doing different things together. So I'm a person who enjoys sometimes I like similar things, but sometimes I also like variety. I'm not like a linear type of person, but for Rich, it's like movies. Let's do that. We did that yesterday. Yeah, but let's do it again. And I'm like, okay, it's fine, but like after a couple weeks of movies, I think we should go do something else. But he's totally content in that.
Archie doesn't seem to mind.
The fur baby doesn't mind. Yes, yeah. And so that's been hard, because I think for me, my reaction would be like, do you really like being with me? Like, do you really like spending time with me? Like, and for him, he's just like, I don't understand. Yeah. So that's definitely been a challenge to navigate, I think.
I love it. Just hearing you all is like...
It's like echoes. Movies are bad for her because she falls asleep every day.
Too long.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. But I can see... So you kind of took us into the next question about love languages. So my question is, we already talked about it, but where did you hear the term or the idea first? Like, was it foreign to you in a cultural context when you first heard about love languages?
I think I first heard it from Sharon. Because she wanted us to take the test and she wanted to know what to
Always, if I see any personality test, whether it's psychologically valid or not, I'm like, I take it first. I'm like, Rich, you take it. I want to see this. But in my head, I'm like, I already think I know what he is, but I just want to see if I'm right. So.
Oh wow.
But I would say that the concepts probably aren't foreign. I think it is interesting though, because my whole family has an exact same love language, or for the most part we have the same love languages.
But they've never taken the test, so
that's
just your assumption.
I'm pretty sure. It's also cultural too. So
a lot of acts of service in the Asian culture, but especially in his family. Yeah. I would say when I first heard about it, I think it was through like a church context. Like someone had talked about it and I was very fascinated. I think it was new for me. I don't think it was something I knew about. So a little bit about me, we are from the Asian context, so even my parents, the way they love me and love in general is through acts of service. And that's through feeding you, good education. A lot of the Chinese kids that I know that, don't have debt after college because their parents work really, really hard to pay fully for education. That's like their gift to you. And then you're on your own after that. But like
it is an expectation.
They really try to take care of you in that way. And I'm really thankful and grateful for that. But I think for myself, as a very dynamic, extroverted, more complex person in that sense, I always felt like there was something missing in the way that my parents loved me. And growing up, there was a lot of tension and conflict, but I didn't have the language to know what that was. And they would always be like, you're so ungrateful. We do all these things. And I'm like, something feels wrong, but I don't know what it is. And so this book illuminated to me that it wasn't they were wrong or I was wrong. It's that our love languages didn't match. So I really enjoy quality time together. I think that's like my top one. And so that caused conflict there, and subsequently here too, because you fit more with the acts of service as well as a person.
Yes,
Yeah.
and my definitions of love languages are slightly different from yours,
Yeah.
which does create friction. I actually find that I have friends who aren't in the church, aren't in the church bubble, that also know about the love languages. That's where I find some confusion. I'm like, well, where did you hear about this?
Yeah.
You seem really interested.
It's really become like more widespread.
More
and
widespread.
everything.
Yeah. I definitely agree, because we heard about it like a long time ago when we read the Gary Chapman's
the book.
books. Yeah, but I don't think we heard it from any church context. Because remember, we grew up in a Nigerian church and like love language.
Yeah.
But like you said, you kind of always think there's something missing, and it's not like right or wrong, but you're just like, there's something here, I mean, I know my mom used to say to me, she doesn't even know how I was kind of born in Nigeria. It's like you belong to a different country or something like that.
I get that all the time too.
So I think maybe that's the thing here. So Sharon has a background in psychology, which I think stems from that thing of wanting to know more about the human being, right?
Yeah.
As just who are we as humans, and our minds and all that outside of the spiritual part. So I read, he read,
I heard it from her. Yeah.
and it was like just like you. I'm like, oh, okay, this is mine, this is his, and then he came and he validated it. But I think you might have heard our episode where we were like, those changed after a while, depending on the season
of life too.
Yeah. So I guess my question for you is, how would you deal with that? Like, so if you got to a point where that shifted, right?
Well,
because you're still early.
Depends what it is, I guess, what it shifts to. So like I'm not a very big like gift person, right?
Which is great, because I will never go
Right. We both, like, in the Asian household, gifts don't exist,
Yeah.
Christmas presents don't exist. Like, it's not a thing, it's a waste of money in our cultural context. But like, recently I've acquired some friends who like are really great gift givers, and it's nothing expensive. It's like, I started working out more, so they gifted me leggings, and I was like, oh, you noticed that I worked out more. I was like, I kind of like this. And so I thought, to help Rich with the fact that he struggles with quality time, I was like, Rich, when you go away on a trip, maybe if you just think of me, just get me anything, something small to think of me. And he was like, oh my gosh, this is the hardest thing ever.
For me, it becomes analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
Because
And now he's stressed.
I'm so bad at it that it's not enough that I see something, okay, maybe that's good. Let me go and experience the rest of the trip. Maybe there's something else that's better that I can get.
So the trip becomes about getting Sharon a gift versus the trip.
And then at the end, I'm at the airport. I'm like, okay, now I gotta find something at the airport. Gift shop.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I appreciate the effort, but I feel like after that experience, I was like, okay, maybe that wasn't the way to go.
But I think to answer your question, I think if our love languages shift, it's about open communication.
Yeah,
because
that's the
then
biggest
again, we are two almost polar opposite
We're
people.
so different. I don't even know how this happened.
And so when we don't talk about things, it creates a lot of